Welcome to Taking Your Automation to the Next Level with PowerShell 7. I'm Joey Aiello, Program Manager on the PowerShell team.
And howdy, I'm Jeffrey Snover, Microsoft Technical Fellow. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So first, we're going to talk about the evolution of PowerShell and our sacred vow. We're going to talk about PowerShell 7, 7.0, 7.1, and then what we're going to do for 7.2. That's going to be an LTS release and beyond that. And then talk about some of the innovation that we're doing in PowerShell. But first, let's stop back and take a look at COVID-19. Wow, what a strange time, right? Lots of drama everywhere. But if you think about it, the details will vary, but here's the reality. The reality is the world always has been, the world is, and the world always will be a messy place, right? And so, and in this time, what it's really highlighting are these values, which have always been more important, always will be important, but this period of time are really highlighting how valuable these qualities are. Qualities like adaptability, resilience, robustness, and automation. Okay, now why is automation on that list? And really, and we're going to talk about that. And really, this is sort of what I call the F5 moment, right? The hit refresh moment. This is a time you want to stop, think about what things are serving you, think about what things are not serving you, and then invest in the things that serve you and drop the things that don't. Remember, you can't just keep adding to things, right? You got to drop things in order to create bandwidth to take on things. Now, we're going to point out how PowerShell is really something you should have invested in, and how, if you did, how it's paying off, and how, if you haven't invested in it, you really should. So first, a story. You might have heard of this thing called Microsoft Teams. Teams has had explosive adoption during this period of COVID-19. And so this is from a while ago, but you might have seen this CNN article about how Teams usage went up by 12 million daily active users in a week, up to 44 million. Now that number's in fact gone, much higher than that. But imagine one day your boss taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, next week we're going to have 12 million more users every single day. What would you do for that? And I'll tell you, boy, it was just an amazing time. Now, during this time, they, tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, Jeffrey, we need your help. We need you to be an executive incident manager for the European expansion of Teams. So that meant getting up at 3 a.m, showing up and helping teams out. And here's the thing I noticed. PowerShell was everywhere. PowerShell was everywhere. They were using it for diagnostics, for operations, for provisioning, for repair. PowerShell was everywhere. And I will tell you that PowerShell's verbosity and clarity were just gifts in these stressful periods, right? And you're stressed to be able to open up a script and see what it does and know exactly what it does with clarity was such a gift. And now the point of this is we were automating up and automating down. Yes, we're buying as many x86 servers as we could, but in fact, that wasn't fast enough. So what we had to do is we had to tear some things down and use that capacity for Teams. And the point was PowerShell was being used everywhere. We were automating up and we were automating down, and things just worked, right? It was a wild success. And why was that? And the answer was, we were prepared and we were using PowerShell. Now, Clausewitz, right, the famous historian, once said, to secure peace is to prepare for war. Well, for IT pros, I've got a variation on that. And for me, what I say is, hey, to secure calm is to prepare for drama. Why did this Teams expansion work with relatively no drama? And the answer was we were prepared for that drama. And here I'm kind of highlighting the point that PowerShell 7 and PowerShell in general has been this 20-year story of preparing you for drama. Okay, now there's a recent book about this. Don Jones recently wrote the origin story for PowerShell. It's a fantastic book. He went and talked to a bunch of the members of the original team, got their stories, and included in this book. I strongly encourage you to give it a try. But in it, you'll see throughout this 20-year story, we have had this idea of a sacred vow. Now, how many technologies out there or products out there make you a sacred vow? right? I don't think there are many, right? And here's our sacred vow. Our sacred vow is this. Look, I know you're busy, your hair's on fire, and I'm asking you to stop and learn PowerShell. And our sacred vow is learn PowerShell and your value will continue to appreciate over time. That we will continue invest in PowerShell and then we will invest in you and make your skills more valuable year after year after year. And I think you'll see that through the rest of this presentation. PowerShell is a story of continued investment. This is not something we've run hot on and then run cold on. We continue to invest. We continue to invest in you.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the evolution of PowerShell over the history. Thanks so much, Jeffrey. So, when PowerShell first got started back in the sort of Windows PowerShell 1.0 and 2.0 days, IT management on Windows was extremely messy, as we talked about, right? And it's always going to be messy to some extent. But in the Windows world, we had all these different ways that you could manage your IT workloads, right? You had COM, Win32 APIs, .NET APIs, WMI, the registry, files floating around everywhere. And so PowerShell was really built as this way that you could weave all of these different types of APIs together in single scripts in a very task-oriented layer of abstraction, right? So instead of me having to worry about, which technology I have to use because I'm interacting with the storage layer versus the networking layer, I'm able to just use PowerShell to call all of these things from a single logical flow. But this also meant that people had to do a lot of things themselves, right? They had to weave these APIs together. So in the PowerShell 3.0 through 5.0 days, we focused more on adding modules for specific roles and features, right? So instead of you having to figure out that half of the storage APIs are in one place and half are in the other, we glued them together inside of these storage modules so that you could really use them without having to do all that additional heavy lifting. Additionally, we added WinRM remoting because as we grew PowerShell, you're going to need to grow the scale of the systems that you're managing, and so having that ability to remote into a number of machines and do that fan out of automation was critical. Now, obviously, 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to open source PowerShell, and with PowerShell Core 6.x. This meant that we had ubiquity, right? So this was all about bringing PowerShell to more than just Windows and Windows Server, but bringing it to the rest of the world, right? The macOS admins out there that were managing Windows Server, the Linux admins out there that maybe had mixed environments between Windows and Linux, and so putting PowerShell in all of these newly disparate places, where in the past we had these disparate APIs, we now had disparate operating systems, container technologies, REST APIs, etc. But of course, this came with a price, right? Which was that, as you can see, some of this Venn diagram here on the outside was actually stuff that no longer worked in the Windows Server days, right? So we took a step back on a few of those roles and features. But with the introduction of PowerShell 7, we've brought all of this back, right? So in addition to a bunch of native modules working just great, we've also got these Windows compatibility layers that allows us to call back into Windows PowerShell, and everything is working from before just like you would expect it to.
Right, so now why do we call it PowerShell 7, right? And the answer is this. Well, first, we had Windows PowerShell. And so what was it? Windows PowerShell enabled simple automation and management of Windows servers and clients. Awesome. Then we had this separate thing, right? PowerShell Core. So you had Windows PowerShell and then you had PowerShell Core. Well, so what was PowerShell Core? Well, PowerShell Core was this great universal automation and management system, works across operating systems and clouds. So, but then why was it PowerShell Core? And the answer was it was sort of qualified, right? It's qualified. And the answer was it couldn't do everything that Windows PowerShell could do. And so now we just call it PowerShell. We drop Windows, we drop Core, it is PowerShell. PowerShell 7. PowerShell 7 is the tool that works across all environments. There's no modifier, there's no qualifier, there's no caveat. This is the one you want. So PowerShell 7 enables automation, management, deployment on cloud, on premises, hybrid resources at large scale and complexity, manages our stuff, manages the other people's stuff, anybody's cloud, anywhere. This truly is now PowerShell 7 is the tool to manage anything from anywhere. Joey, has this been successful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've had explosive growth over the last year. So you can see here back in September of 2019, we were actually sitting at 20 million startups of PowerShell per month. And this has 5x'd since then. So, you see a nice little jump as the release candidates for 7.0 start to come out. And then this GA in March where we've got a ton of usage. And this big chunk you see, we'll dig in a little bit here on the next slide. But all of this orange right here is all Linux, right? So you'd expect a lot of folks talk about how PowerShell is really this, it's Windows technology. Traditionally, Windows PowerShell shipped as a component of Windows. But you can see here the majority of the growth that we've experienced here from PowerShell 6 and 7 were really there on Linux. So this idea of heterogeneous environments where you're operating against multiple operating systems, automating against multiple operating systems is very real. And the value prop here, people have really understood this a lot. But we've also got Windows growing at a steady clip too, right? So this is folks who, have been using Windows PowerShell in the past, but they find that there's enough benefit in PowerShell 6 and 7 to move forward, to leverage that on Windows as well.
Yeah, I have to say, I think, we always knew people would get the Linux support. I think we were shocked at how quickly and how enthusiastically people have adopted Linux.
Yeah, it's been really awesome to see. And similarly, this sort of cloud first world, where we're in this more of a fixed forward state, we're seeing people upgrade very quickly, right? So this is PowerShell 6 and 7 by version, same usage graph, but you can see here, this explosive upgrade from the blackish grayish 6.x usage to the orange 7.0 usage, where we now have 90% of our overall users on PowerShell 7. So it's just been phenomenal to see people, adopt as we move forward, and we're hoping to see something similar with PowerShell 7.1. So PowerShell 7, we were talking about the sacred vow before. PowerShell 7 absolutely fulfills the sacred vow in making your investment in learning PowerShell more valuable over time. So with 7.0 LTS, we added features like for each object -parallel, where you've got real world improvements of piping to for each object of 2 to 100 times speed up. This is if you're doing, large sort of fan out operations, or you're doing things against multiple disks or multiple SQL databases, where you're suddenly going to be able to do multiple enumerations and automations against a pipeline in parallel. Similarly, Jeffrey was talking about how PowerShell really provided a lot of the diagnosability in managing the scale up of teams. And in PowerShell 7, we've added a number of features that make it easier than ever to diagnose errors. We have a get error commandlet that gives you an expansion of your entire error stack. And we've also simplified error messages at the command line so that only the pieces that you really care about are available to you.
Yeah, this is one of those subtle things that people just don't notice when they notice it, when they start using it, and they just notice, boy, things just feel easier, feel more productive, feel the flow's easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, you almost don't notice it at first, but then these things start to accrue and you start to realize just how much of a better experience PowerShell 7 provides. So, as we talked about before as well, this was all about bringing back the sort of stuff that the qualifiers that we had to tack on to 6.x. So we've got more native compatibility than ever. You can go to AKMS/PS module compat to get the information on exactly which Windows modules work and how. And then for those that aren't natively compatible, they're going to magically work on their own within Windows environments by calling back into Windows PowerShell secretly under the hood. So all of your scripts now, you can really just run them in PowerShell 7 and trust that they're going to work exactly as they did before.
Yeah, this is some amazing stuff. And in fact, this misses one of my favorite features of 7.0, which is the, dozens, perhaps even hundreds of small little fixes that we've added through the community, added on our own. It really just has this nice fit and finish. It's one of those things, once you use it, you don't want to go back.
Yeah, and for instance, some of these new operators that we added here, just sort of quality of life improvements, the ternary operator, null conditional operators that allow you to do things in a little bit of a cleaner syntax for those of more advanced users. But as Jeffrey was saying, with 7.1, we really focused on those sort of under the hood improvements in the long tail, right? And you might not notice some of them at first, but it really brings the whole experience together. And I can say when you've used PowerShell 7 for a long time, and then you go back to Windows PowerShell 5.1, you really realize how much stuff is missing there, right? All of these parameters that we've added and error messages that have been improved, better stability, better debugging, SSH-based remoting, all of these things that really just make the entire product so much more cohesive. And in 7.1 specifically, this was sort of a community release for us. We focused on a lot of the issues that had been filed from the community, of which about 95% are filed from folks like you out there. And we were able to close over 1,000 community issues since 7.0 was release candidate was released back in December. We've also added ARM64 support on Windows for those of you in the IoT space, as well as, this is a really big one for me, the ability to install and update PowerShell from the Microsoft Store. So this is, if you're on Windows 10 client, you're able to go into the store now and grab a fully featured version of PowerShell 7 preview. The 7.1 will be available very soon, and we'll be adding 7.0 there as well. So, definitely check that out. It's going to make installing and updating PowerShell on your clients that much easier.
Yeah, Joey, you were mentioning the performance. Just yesterday, I was getting ready for this, and I did some side-by-sides comparison. I was just shocked by how much faster even dir was. So.
The file system improvements, that's been massively improved. The JSON parsing improvements are huge. The ability to pipe to convert to CSV, all of these things, really are just so much faster. And I'm seeing real world improvements out there where, a script that took an hour on Windows PowerShell is taking 5 minutes on PowerShell 7. So it's just really, really phenomenal.
Is that with or without parallel for each?
That is with parallel for each, yes. Yeah. So that was a huge one. But even then, some of the CSV stuff, is getting cut in half just from improvements to the CSV commandlets, right? Let's talk a little bit about the innovation and tooling happening in the PowerShell space. So one of the things that's really important to us is that we maintain the stability and performance of the PowerShell language, runtime, and package. Right? Everyone out there is depending on automated scripts that often are left in fully automated headless environments, and they want to make sure that those scripts continue working after PowerShell gets updated. So one of the things that we've done in the PowerShell engine is added this concept of experimental features. So experimental features get turned on by default in preview versions, and then get turned off in GA versions of PowerShell. And what that allows us to do is try new things like breaking changes or changes to the language runtime that may ultimately make the PowerShell experience much better, but where, maybe we're not sure whether or not this is going to impact the PowerShell user base. And we want people to be able to try this in a safe way. So we've got this get experimental feature and set experimental features, and we've added new language operators through this, features that may be subject to change, parameters that may change in the future. But generally speaking, we're also trying to do a lot of the innovation outside PowerShell. So anything that we can encapsulate as a module, we'd much prefer shipping pre-release modules onto the gallery for. So, some of these things include new innovations happening in PS Readline, the secret management module we'll be talking about later, PowerShell Get 3.0, PowerShell Notebooks, Unix completers, which is a better tab completion for native Linux applications, and native tool commandlet generation. So all of these things are new innovations happening in PowerShell, but we're able to do them safely in modules that ship on the gallery instead of shipping them as part of the PowerShell package.
Right. So let's talk about secrets management. As you know, never put secrets in your scripts, right? Just all sorts of bad. And we got that, religion early on, and that's why we support PS credentials, right? And PS credentials have served us extremely well. However, in modern world, there are more secrets, and people don't realize that they're secrets. These API keys, there's lots of places that use these things, and people don't grok that they're secrets, but they really are. And so we haven't had a real good way to be able to manage those secrets, and now we do. And that's our new secrets management model. And the idea here is that, you can put your secrets in any key vault you want. Ours will have a default one, etc. And then you write the scripts, you retrieve the secret from the vault. Joey, let's demo this.
Absolutely. So you can see here that I've already connected to Azure using the connect AZ account commandlet built into Azure PowerShell. And so the next thing we're going to do is use the new register secret vault commandlet to go ahead and register a new local vault called AKV Vault, along with our AKV Vault extension that integrates with secrets management. You can have these for other clouds as well. And then some vault parameters we're going to pass in, including the name of the AKV vault on the remote end and a subscription ID that we've specified as an environment variable. So we're going to go ahead and register that. And you'll see right off the bat that we do now have a local AKV vault command, or a vault that we've accessed using the get secret vault commandlet. So now we're going to check to see if a test secret exists. And you'll see here that we get no return output. And this has actually gone to the remote server to look for this thing. So this time we're going to go ahead and generate it here in the Azure portal. So we've got a value here. This is super secret. And once that secret's been created, we can flip back to Visual Studio Code and click into check out this secret again. So this time we run the same commandlet and we do see that that test secret now exists. So this is something you should not do in production, but just to show you that in fact the value is correct, we're going to run this directly at the console with the as plain text parameter. And what that's going to do is output the plain text representation of that secret. But again, we don't want to have that stored in the logs, so do not do this in production. So you can see this is super secret is in fact the value of that secret that we retrieved from AKV. But again, this could be any secret stored in AWS or HashiCorp's vault or wherever. So next thing we're going to do is find the test gallery publish key secret, which is a NuGet API key that is going to allow us to publish a test module to the PowerShell test gallery. So again, we've inlined this get secret as a value passed to the NuGet API key parameter. And because we've specified it there, it will not show up in our logs. Again, with that as plain text, because that does need a text representation of the key. And we're going to go ahead and install that module to make sure that it was in fact successfully published to the gallery. And so we're able to run install module. It's going to go and grab it. And again, this script, really the value add that we have here is that we can take this script and publish it in a way that the vault name is parameterized, right? So if I put this script up on the PowerShell gallery, I'm actually able to see that, or I'm able to download that thing and pass in a different vault name for a different vault extension that I've registered. So this could be a local vault. You could be using KeyPass, HashiCorp's vault, any of these different vault technologies that you've set up beforehand. And that get secret is going to work uniformly against any of those vault providers by going through the secret management module. So this is a really cool way to really grow the ecosystem and the shareability of open source artifacts that use different vault technologies under the hood without having to hard code that into those shareable artifacts.
And for people who haven't picked it up, this is Visual Studio Code, but showing in PowerShell ISE mode. One of my favorite things.
So let's talk a little bit about PowerShell Get 3.0, right? So this is a brand new version of PowerShell Get that's been available as a pre-release module for about a year now. Some of the top benefits, one of the things we've heard from customers a lot is that PowerShell Get 2.0 is sometimes difficult to get modules to install, right? You have to start tacking on these additional parameters like dash force, allow clobber, all these kind of additional parameters. And so we really wanted to simplify the commandlet surface area. So this is going to make it a lot easier to just get modules when you want them from the PowerShell gallery. Additionally, we've ported everything to C# to improve the performance and stability of the modules. We've seen some customer issues around sort of transient error messages happening or sometimes modules taking too long to install. We've also got full compatibility with NuGet 3.0 for those of you that have your own hosted artifact feeds that have moved to v3. Similarly, we've got this new version syntax that has been often requested that allows you to specify a maximum or minimum version with range syntax. So, here at the end, you see this example with the square bracket 3.0 to the 4 with the closing parens. And what that basically says is, hey, I want all the modules from 3.0 and up, but not anything 4.0 and up. And that's great because if modules are following semantic versioning, you're going to make sure that you've snapped to a module that is going to maintain the same commandlet surface area without breaking changes as you might experience in, say, the 4.0 version. And of course, we're going to add some aliases for backwards compatibility with PowerShell Get 2.0 for those of you that have really large scripts that you don't yet want to update to meet the new surface area of 3.0. So again, this is available now in the PowerShell gallery. You can install it with PowerShell Get 2.0 using this command here. And this will be the default in PowerShell 7.2. So as soon as we ship our first preview of 7.2, this is going to be available right in there. And you can start testing to make sure all your CI/CD scripts are going to continue working as you expect.
Yeah, another exciting area is notebooks. I'm just wildly excited about notebooks. Notebooks are interactive documents that mix script and documentation. So the documentation's in Markdown, and then there's a script. And the nice thing about it is you see the code, and then you can run the code. And then you can run the code. So here's the document, here's the code, you run it, see the results, and then you can go and modify the code and rerun it. So these are fantastic for tutorials, how to learn, how to document things, really kind of like run books. Like I was pointing out that Teams would have been great to be able to have these notebooks for that environment where it documents the environment and then walks you through the steps and then has some examples of what to do when you see this, etc. And the great thing about these notebooks is that they can combine multiple languages into a single file. And there are two types of notebooks. There are .NET interactive notebooks. You can find out a lot about that at this URL. And then there's this notebook mode in PowerShell Visual Studio Code extension. So Joey, why don't we give a demo of this?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a .NET Interactive notebook queued up, ready to go to show you some mixing of both Markdown and PowerShell in a single notebook. Yeah, so we're going to move right into Visual Studio Code here to show you a .NET Interactive notebook that's going to show the new for each object parallel feature as a piece of interactive documentation in a .NET Interactive notebook. So here we've opened up a .NET Interactive notebook that contains both Markdown and PowerShell code in the same notebook. This particular notebook was created as a piece of interactive documentation to demonstrate the -parallel parameter that we added as a performance optimization to for each object in the PowerShell 7.0 release. So right up here, we've got a standard Markdown title, followed by some plain text written in Markdown that's going to frame the script that we want to run directly after that. So just below that, we have a piece of PowerShell script that's going to pass an array of the numbers 1 through 5 into for each object, sleeping for 1 second after each number is written to the console. So if we go ahead and execute this script, you'll see that we get all of our output in line just below the cell that we executed. And in fact, we get an execution time of 6.3 seconds, which is each of these numbers sleeping for 1 second plus a small amount of overhead. We go just below that, and we're able to mix Markdown back into the notebook in order to frame the next cell. So here, we've actually introduced the -parallel parameter, which is going to execute this much quicker. And in fact, we're able to finish in 1.1 seconds. So again, we get this interactive output directly in line as part of the notebook. Now, if we want to edit a Markdown cell, we can actually click straight into it and edit it in real time. So if I go ahead and add some asterisks around the word larger and revalidate the cell, I'm going to see that italics pop into the Markdown just as I'd expect. So I get this rich editing experience directly in Visual Studio Code to actually edit these individual cells. And of course, I can do this with longer running scripts as well. And while I'm not going to execute this one today because of the GitHub API rate limits, I can guarantee you that this does in fact work and will again give me output showing all of the repositories in the PowerShell, Microsoft, and .NET organizations on GitHub. So you can use this notebook feature with long-running scripts, both to demonstrate things educationally, as well as to run semi-manual tasks in a long-running workbook in your IT environment. Awesome. So definitely stay tuned to the PowerShell team blog for more information on how notebooks are going to evolve over time. There's a lot of changes coming in, and it's a really exciting space that we really hope to have a lot more shareable notebooks out there for the ecosystem for all these purposes.
Yeah, it's crazy cool stuff.
Really cool. So what's next? What's next for PowerShell? So first, we've got a bunch of things that are going to be generally available, GA'd very soon. PowerShell 7.1 release candidate should already be out now, and the generally available release will be coming in November. PowerShell Get 3.0 will be coming later this year. You should see a GA release of that, and it will be making its way into PowerShell 7.2 RC, PowerShell 7.2 preview, which will be out right after PowerShell 7.1 GAs. And then the secret management will be TBD based on feedback. So this is a place where security really matters. We want to make sure that all of our commandlet surface area and security concerns are totally buttoned up before we tell people to take a production dependency on that. So again, expect that 7.1, 7.2 preview right after the 7.1 GA. You'll also
tell them what LTS is.
Oh yeah, so the long-term servicing branch. So LTS releases of PowerShell are supported under the .NET Core LTS lifecycle, which means that they're supported for 3 years, while non-LTS builds are supported for 1 year. So if you really care about stability and you don't want to be updating your version of PowerShell every single year, you can definitely snap to 7.0 or 7.2, and that LTS is gonna keep you supported for that 3-year lifespan. We'll also be uploading PowerShell 7. I mentioned before, we now have it available on the Microsoft Store, which is really great for Windows 10 clients. But for those of you that are not in client environments, right, you want to deploy PowerShell 7 to your Windows servers, or maybe you're not using the Windows Store and you want to deploy using SCCM or WSUS. We're going to be uploading PowerShell 7 and all of its updates to the download catalog so that it works with Microsoft Update, WSUS, and SCCM. So expect that pretty soon here as well. And finally, we're going to be making a ton of interactive improvements in PS readlines. So, this is dynamic help, better tab completion, smart predictions that give you suggestions on the kinds of stuff that you might want to run, and more. So definitely check out Jeffrey's doing another session with Jason Helmick, PowerShell Unplugged, where they're going to be going into some of these in more detail. So what can you do now? Well, first of all, you can download and install PowerShell 7. So you can go and grab it at akms/get-PowerShell. We've got the 7.0 LTS, 7.1 release candidates already out, 7.2 previews coming soon, and then file issues. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. You can even contribute documentation, tests, or even product code into PowerShell if there's something that you really think deserves to be there in the package, and you've got some great ideas. Come tell us about them. Come help out. This is all open source, and we have so many contributions coming from the community. It's really, really awesome. Got a million other projects available at github.com/PowerShell. A ton of different modules, other experiments that we're running. There's just tons of code flying through there, so come check it out. Additionally, definitely make sure to check out our PowerShell team blog at akms/PS blog. For those RSS lovers out there, feel free to subscribe. PowerShell team on Twitter, that's PowerShell_team. Follow us there for the latest updates. We post blog updates there, module updates as well. Definitely for all the latest stuff, check us out there. And then at Ignite, like I said, check out that PowerShell Unplugged with Jeffrey and Jason, as well as Ask the Experts that we're going to be doing with the PowerShell team. We've got be bringing in people from the product team, engineers, PMs. Bunch of us will be there. So come in and ask your questions and talk to us there.
Great. So in summary, right, again, PowerShell Sacred Vow. PowerShell Sacred Vow is learn PowerShell, and over time, you will become more valuable. Why is that? We continue to make you more valuable. PowerShell 7.1 is the release that now you can manage anything from anywhere. We've been in this 20 years. We've been investing in this for over 20 years, and really the journey has just begun. So thank you for all your contributors. Thank you for all your feedback. We do this product for you and your feedback, telling us where we've done well, and more importantly, where we haven't done well, where we have gaps to do, are the reason why this is a great tool. So continue to give us that feedback. Thank you for that. And hope you have a great Ignite 2020.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great Ignite.